Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
I was seriously considering inventing a whole new rating tier just for this movie. I haven't really worked it all out yet, but it was along the lines of, I want my 2 hours back. I made a handful of videos about this movie leading up to its release, and I expressed many times how I was cautiously optimistic, but that I had some real concerns based on what they were showing us. And almost all of these concerns were confirmed watching this movie tonight. In fact, most of them were confirmed in the first 10 minutes.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
That is everything except the weird Andy Serkis comments about how this is a metaphor for LGBTQ relationships. I didn't really get any of that from this movie, so it doesn't have heavy-handed messages. But that didn't help the movie from turning out to be a complete pile of garbage. I want everyone to take a long, hard look at the state of comic book movies right now.
That's right, it stinks!
And take this into consideration. I'm a 90s kid, right? I grew up in a time when Venom and Carnage were the epitome of cool 90s badass characters in comics. And now we have a movie, finally, with those characters together, and they're almost unrecognizable. Yes, based on appearance they look the part, but I'm talking about how they feel and how they act. Let's start with Venom, shall we? Can someone explain to me why everyone seems to be okay with turning characters like this into a joke?
Had you ever heard of the healing power of laughter?
Venom is an absolute buffoon in this movie. He's basically a vessel for slapstick comedy and cringe humor. He's not intimidating, he's not commanding, he's not memorable. The biggest appeal of the first movie was the back and forth between Eddie and Venom, because at the time this was a new concept and it was relatively entertaining. Now, already by the second movie, they've taken that idea and completely overdone it. In fact, I'd say they ran it directly into the ground.
So preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Honestly, there were scenes with Eddie and Venom where I couldn't tell if I was watching a Three Stooges episode or a Nickelodeon cartoon. No disrespect to Three Stooges, but it's just not something I expect from a character like Venom. And think about that for a second. This is the Venom that Andy Serkis, Sony, and Hollywood decided to give us. And some people seem to be okay with that, for reasons. I guess because he makes them laugh.
Ha ha, very funny, motherfucker!
They took a character that defined a generation and decided to modernize him. Does that sound familiar? And we all know that modernizing a character is just code for dumbing them down. The character of Venom exists in this movie as pure comedic relief at the most basic level. Also, this can't be ignored anymore. I love Tom Hardy, but his acting in this movie is just bizarre at times. And I'm not just talking about his voice.
That's bait.
And that brings me to Carnage. I was on record as saying that casting Woody Harrelson as Carnage was a stroke of genius. And while I still think he would work in the role under the right circumstances, the character that they put on screen in this movie was Carnage in name only. Carnage is supposed to be a sadistic and brutal serial killer. A force of nature, an unstoppable killing machine.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.
One of Spider-Man and Venom's most dangerous foes. In fact, Spider-Man and Venom typically have to put their differences aside just to defeat him. And in this movie, Woody Harrelson plays him in the most ridiculous and goofy way possible. And at no point during this movie does Carnage feel dangerous or as important as he should. He's one of the best comic book villains, and I had absolutely zero reaction every time he was on screen. And I can hear it already. Your expectations were too high. You have to turn your brain off. All the usual excuses. Yeah, because God forbid I hold studios with nearly endless resources accountable for their shitty movies.
Fuck me, right?
Can anyone out there, honestly, with a straight face, tell me that this was the best Venom and Carnage movie we could have got? If you can honestly say that to me, I'm gonna have to call you a liar. Or maybe you just have no idea who these characters are to begin with, so then you wouldn't know any better. Or possibly you're just content with mediocrity. I'm not sure which. The fact of the matter is that Carnage was treated like a nobody in this movie. He was nothing more than a stepping stone to get to the next adventure. And I'm sorry, but Carnage deserves much better than this. Once again, he wasn't interesting, he wasn't scary, he wasn't memorable. Just another lazy villain in a comic book movie in 2021.
Why do these things always happen to me?
This movie couldn't even pull off Carnage's origins properly. How hard would it have been to have Eddie placed in prison at some point during this movie? The cops already suspect that he had something to do with the events of the first movie, and both Venom movies actually set up the idea that he's going to have to deal with the consequences of what him and Venom did. Yet he experiences no consequences at any point. Now, I'm definitely not one of those people who feel like everything has to match the comics exactly. In fact, I'm an advocate for people doing fresh interpretations of these stories. But Venom leaving his offspring behind in prison poison so it can eventually find Cletus is a hell of a lot better than Cletus biting Eddie. He bites Eddie on his hand. Riveting stuff. I wonder how long it took them to come up with that story idea.
Anybody care about what I want?
I do.
Shut up. Get out.
Oh, and speaking of story, there isn't one. The basic premise, Eddie and Venom argue and then realize they need each other, and Cletus hates Eddie because he won't be his friend. That's it. That's all we got. How far have we fallen from the father-son dynamic of Spider-Man 2, where Peter realizes what it means to be a hero and why the world needs Spider-Man, and how he has to overcome mental, physical, and personal demons to stop an intellectually and physically superior villain. But no, in this movie we have Venom and Eddie fighting like a married couple, and them fighting a man-child.
Fuck you!
Does any of this sound interesting to anyone? I say in videos all the time how Hollywood wants to systematically change every single character that we love. Well, apparently we could add dumbing them down to the list as well. Basically, they take something that's interesting and strip everything away that makes that thing interesting. Venom and Carnage were dumbed down in this movie, they had their balls chopped off, and if you can read the writing on the walls, you know exactly why this is happening. It's very clear, especially if you watch the end credit sequence where this is all going. And I personally do not give a shit.
I don't care!
Venom Let There Be Carnage was a failure at every level. It doesn't do the characters any justice, it's a complete waste of time. It's not funny or entertaining, but it's trying desperately to be both. I've never been more convinced that movies like this are no longer made for old school fans like myself, and are now being redesigned to appeal to the least common denominator. That's why I'm giving Venom Let There Be Carnage the Disgusted Ian Malcolm.
That is one big pile of shit.
So have you seen Venom Let There Be Carnage? If you have, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.